Welcome, I'm Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. This video will be the January 2022 astrology forecast. I can't believe it's already the new year. First off, I wanted to say thank you to all of my patrons. I hope that you are enjoying being a patron and getting early access to a lot of my astrology and magic videos, in some cases, exclusive access as well. If you would like to join my Patreon family, you certainly can. You can go to patreon.com/Nina Griffin. All right, now let's get started. The thing about January is that much of the activity this month happens in just two signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. Now, of the 7 visible planets at any given time in January, between 4 and 6 will be in a Saturn-ruled sign, which is kind of amazing, and it's going to set the tone for January as well. Now, most activity that we're going to see is going to be restrained and slow-moving, appropriate to Saturn-ruled signs, but also countries with strong Aquarius and Capricorn placements will also be front and center. This certainly includes Russia, which is traditionally an Aquarius-ruled country, and also many of the former Soviet republics, many of which have Saturn in Aquarius because that is the time that they gained their independence in the early 1990s. It's interesting to me that the U.S. July 4th horoscope for the Declaration of Independence has the moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So we can see how all these countries with Aquarius placements are inextricably tied together. Now, the theme for this month is going to be careful maneuvering. Mars will enter Capricorn, his exaltation at the month's end, so Mars-like people and institutions are going to be making their move at that time, but there is a moderating influence as well to Mars's excesses due to the sextile from Jupiter in Pisces, who is going to be in his domicile at that time. Weather is going to be exceedingly cold, even unusually so in January, because in weather astrology, Aquarius is said to be the very coldest sign. Now let's take this week by week. In week 1, January 2nd, there will be a new moon at 12 degrees Capricorn. This is going to be a moderating new moon that is ruled by Saturn in Aquarius. The new moon will join or conjoin Venus in Capricorn, and so the focus will be on enjoyment, but in a spare and restrained manner. This is cautious partying, is how I would term this. It's opportune for creating alliances where moderation, restraint, and a long-term collective view is important. This new moon, to me, brings to mind the saying, politics makes for strange bedfellows. January 3rd, Venus will have her evening set into the sun's rays at 22 degrees Capricorn, and this is when Venus enters her mystical union with the sun as part of their synodic cycle. Now, this is a transformational moment for Venus, giving us the opportunity to reconsider our relationships with both individuals, but also society and organizations at large, especially in light of 2020, since Capricorn is a sign where there was a lot of pain, a lot of astrologically inflicted pain in 2020, if you think about all of those difficult alignments we had in that year. I think that Venus's passage through the sun's rays in Capricorn brings an opportunity for healing and for revisiting some of that trauma that we all experienced in 2020. January 8th, the sun will conjoin Venus, as she will be retrograde, and this will be at 18 Capricorn. It's a very fertilizing combination, and it's a mutual application of the sun and Venus. They are both going in a direction where they are going towards each other. Traditionally, this combination of Venus and the sun is depicted as a woman who is returning to her husband after having fled their home. It's a sense of returning to one's home base, and it's a fiery and powerful combination. Even though Venus is not a fiery planet, she tends to become ignited with the sun's presence when they conjoin. So even though it is happening in a Saturn sign, especially the very cold sign Capricorn, so this reunion is much more restrained and prone to fewer fireworks than, for example, when it happened in Gemini in the spring of 2020, and in the US, we saw a sudden igniting of the Black Lives Matter movement, just as an example. Now, in week 2, with January 11th, Mars will square Neptune at 20 Sagittarius in Pisces. This is a combination for violence and often mass injury or death, whether through poison, disease, or earthquakes, which also have to do with Neptune. It's not a good period on the personal level for making important decisions or entering major negotiations. It is a deceptive and potentially damaging combination that should be avoided if we are doing something important that requires a lot of detail and finesse. Now, January 14th, Mercury will station retrograde at 10 Aquarius. Here, Mercury almost caught up to a conjunction of Saturn at 13 Aquarius, but before Mercury could conjoin Saturn, he stationed retrograde and never perfected the conjunction. This is called refrenation, so it symbolizes a situation where something is about to happen, but due to a change in circumstances or the parties changing their minds, it never does come to completion. Most likely, the thing that almost happens now is a desired event because Mercury applies to Saturn and is received into Saturn's domicile. Now, the same day, January 14th, Venus will have her morning rise from the sun's rays at 15 Capricorn. Venus will be extremely powerful and visible now, and this always happens when a planet emerges from the sun's rays, newly powerful, newly charged up with that solar energy. And she will be even more powerful in 2 weeks when she goes direct. So this moment of emergence from the sun's rays is known in ancient Greek as phasis, or an appearance, when a planet has been through that solar furnace and comes out strengthened and purified like a precious metal. Now, week 3 starts with January 17th's full moon at 27 Cancer. The moon herself rules this lunation as she is in her own domicile, and she is strong by sign in Cancer, but she is afflicted by an opposition to the sun. Yes, that is an affliction for a planet. The moon's aspects are especially important in this case because she is the ruler and she is so strongly influenced by other planets' aspects. And we can see that she will soon oppose Mercury retrograde once the moon changes signs. Generally, we could see misunderstandings and confrontations pertaining to schools, students, and constraints on or rules pertaining to business. The same day, January 17th, Mercury will have his evening set at 9 Aquarius. This is Mercury now going underground and undercover in the sun's rays, and he will be reborn, symbolically speaking, when he reemerges on the other end, on the other side of the sun's rays, and becomes visible once again. It is a moment of mercurial issues going into hiding or becoming less public or prominent as they are retooled and prepared for the big time. Sometimes big political initiatives and bills are readied for passage when Mercury goes into the rays, and it can also be a difficult time for prominent technologies and tech companies as they get bad press around this time. Now, January 18th, Uranus will station direct at 10 Taurus, so this is going to be important mainly in the collective sphere. The Saturn-Uranus square is about 3 degrees separating, so it's still quite potent, but it does continue to separate as the next few months progress. Now, the separation of Saturn and Uranus is generally a helpful trend to help put our pandemic in the rearview mirror, because that Saturn-Uranus aspect is a major contributor to starting and perpetuating epidemics and pandemics. We are not completely out of the woods because Saturn and Uranus are still pretty close in 2022, but for the next few months at least, the trend will be encouraging. The same day, January 18th, the North Node will enter the sign Taurus. We are entering the average economic growth phase. Up until now, our economic growth, generally speaking, was above average. But once the North Node enters Taurus, it becomes merely average, and then other aspects as they transit can make this average a little better or a little worse than that steady state baseline. The peak of the economic cycle was actually several years ago when the North Node was in Leo, and major planetary aspects can improve that baseline or depress it. And we'll talk more about that in my video about the US markets in 2022. January 19th marks Saturn's evening set under the sun's rays at 13 Aquarius. This is where Saturn goes into the shop for a retooling, a refresh. Again, planets under the sunbeams have little power and little awareness because of their low visibility. And this represents a period where boundaries and prohibitions, but also long-lasting commitments and structures are being reviewed and revamped, often out of public view. So when Saturn emerges from the beams in about a month, all of these matters will dramatically come to the fore once again. In week 4, we start with January 23rd, Mercury retrograde will conjoin the Sun at 3 Aquarius. Mercury, like Venus, is recharged by his conjunction with the Sun, and he will enter the last phase of his cycle, which began with the Sun-Mercury direct conjunction, and this indicated a true rebirth and restart for Mercury. So now Mercury is refreshed by this conjunction, but he's a little bit like an old man taking a break before starting the last leg of his journey. January 24th, Mars will enter Capricorn. Now, this is very beneficial for Mars because he's going to be in his exaltation. And for people who use martial tactics to achieve their goals, as well as countries that are taking a Mars-like approach, all of these are going to become very prominent and they're going to come on very strong, as Mars is prone to do when he's feeling bold and confident, which he does in the sign of his exaltation. So this could be a good moment to start disputes or bring your fight to other people if you decide that you want to adopt martial tactics. January 25th, Mercury retrograde will enter Capricorn. This is again a return to the battleground of Capricorn, which after the harsh and powerful aspects of 2020 in that sign, now of course Capricorn looks like a bombed out moonscape. So Mercury's visit to Capricorn is sort of a temporary visit to a serious, restrained approach, even a grim perspective. But it's more of a journey of the mind, but it's still no less powerful. It is going to be a little bit of a déjà vu feeling around this time. January 28th is Mercury's morning rise at 27 Capricorn, and this is a moment of power for Mercury, and we could see votes, for example, on important legislation, as well as important deals and treaties signed or reaffirmed. Sometimes you'll see important technologies or tech companies rebrand or announce a change of direction around this time. January 29th, Venus will station direct at 11 degrees Capricorn. Speaking of Capricorn, Venus is able to bring her benefic influences to bear on Capricorn now that she is turning direct. This is a very powerful moment in the Venus cycle because Venus is oriental of the Sun, and she is now very warrior-like and not conventionally feminine or deferential, but rather she is like a powerful, awe-inspiring goddess. Again, this is an opportunity for us to rethink and re-experience some of the trauma that many of us still carry from 2020 when Capricorn became such a highly sensitized sign. Now, the very last event of January will be January 31st and will have a new moon at 12 Aquarius. It's a very somber and unadorned new moon with Saturn as the ruler, and he also conjoins the lunation. It's going to be sort of a sober reevaluation of all that we have accomplished or failed to accomplish in the last 13 months. From a weather perspective, this would foretell storms and especially in the northern hemisphere, exceptionally cold weather at some point during the next 2 weeks. So for the first half of February when this new moon is going to be active. All right. Thanks for watching. I'm Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.